Testing, testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, testing, 1, 2. Okay, so you can hear me. So wanted to make sure we did that before I take this deep dive into into the subject matter. So again, truly excited to be back before you again. And yes, we are breaking barriers in the agricultural space. We're talking today about infrastructure, accessibility, and resources for the Black farmer, homesteader, land developer, whatever that is for you. Agriculture is important, and we are breaking the barriers to that. So, some key considerations as we are having this discussion today, some key considerations for infrastructure and accessibility when purchasing your agricultural land. When evaluating, what we've been talking about is evaluating the land that you are thinking about, and or if you already have land, how to evaluate it for homesteading, right? Because some of us are already landowners and desire to develop a homestead on it. However, we must also consider these things. So this is for those who are looking to acquire and or those who have acquired and desire to develop into agricultural land, or consider, whether it would be appropriate for agricultural land. So when evaluating agricultural land, infrastructure and accessibility are critical for your operational efficiency, cost effectiveness, all the things that matter to the success of your operation. So we're going to get into this because your cost effectiveness and long-term success really does matter. Here's a breakdown of key factors that you should assess. Number 1, road access and transportation networks are critical to your accessibility for, I'm sorry, things just went left in the studio. Things can go left, you guys. So we must also, yeah. So we were talking, let's get back to it. So we were talking about road access and transportation networks, which are vital to your success. Condition of your roads really do matter. You want to ensure that the property has well-maintained roads, as poor access can increase costs for your transportation and equipment movement. These are things that if you are in the business of selling real estate should also be considered. So as an advocate for real agri acquisition, I encourage you always to ensure that the property has well-maintained roads, because poor access can increase the cost for transportation and equipment movement. You want to also confirm that the roads are usable in all seasons: winter, spring, summer, or fall. Year-round accessibility, especially in areas that are prone to flooding, snow, or erosion, which we talked about in an earlier live, how important it is for you to check the climate and what actually grows there in your neck of the woods. Proximity to the highway. What is the proximity to the highway or main roads? Because they impact the ease of transporting your crops, livestock, or supplies, right? Check on the distance to any major highways, bridges, and load limits. I know that we can, as we travel, we can see where trucks aren't allowed on certain roads. I live right here in an area where trucks are not allowed. The only trucks that come through here are FedEx and UPS to deliver things, but no other trucks, 18 wheelers or things like that, are allowed in this community because of weight restrictions, right? If the land is near bridges, verify the load capacity for transporting heavy equipment and harvested goods. Hello and welcome to our live. Number two, your utilities. We have to think about utilities, which is why I often stress to those who are seeking to acquire land is don't leave out that land that has a house sitting on it, because that house is an indication that there is infrastructure, that there's already utilities accessible, available for you to begin the process of farming or homesteading or agricultural tourism. You may be looking to design um, have a flower, fresh cut flower. You may be looking to have a bed and breakfast. No matter what that is, you have to have available to you the utilities to begin the process. You want to check for existing electrical connections or the cost of extending power lines if it's off grid. If it's not, if there's a home there, then the likelihood of it being on off grid, the likelihood is that it's on the grid. So you want to be looking for things like that. Even if you don't keep the home that's up there, the infrastructure is what you're really looking for. Consider alternative energy sources as well, like solar or wind if power access is limited, because these things are critical even if your homestead is in an urban community. Never ever be completely reliant on electric as well, because what if the lights go out? What if the power goes down? What if the grid goes down? So you want to always be thinking about the availability of utilities, whether that's through extended power lines or sources of solar or wind for power access, right? The other thing area is in the area of your utilities is you want to be thinking about your water supply. Determine the availability of your municipal water. Some cities have and counties have restrictions on water and water access, but you may consider, waterways or streams or creeks, things that are nearby. These are things that can also provide you water supply. One of the lessons I learned, I believe it was last week, was how even when individuals live on waterfront property in oceans, that there is restrictions to the cargoes coming across certain ports, like their access to water meet is begins and ends with the lines that are already in the water, and certain cargoes cannot pass through those areas. And so it's really critical that you think about, can you have property or acquire property that has access to water? I live right here at a creek, right at a creek. And there is actually access for me to begin to think about a water supply. But the other thing I do is I also catch water, right? Because perhaps the municipal waters aren't safe water. You want to also think about the safety of that water. Other things could be wells and natural water sources, like we're talking about here. You want to make sure I catch rainwater. So I've developed a system of, putting nets, mesh over, even putting mesh over tanks to collect water that eliminates the trash that ends up in the water. Now, this is urban homesteading, but you may be thinking about big farm, so even in big farm, there are systems that we use. Even when we dealt with the county gardens, we had water catchment systems that were in place because we needed water on ground. So you want to determine the availability of municipal water, wells, and natural water sources. You want to test the water quality and check for irrigation rights. That's the thing. The irrigation. Do you have a right to irrigate from that particular water source? Like, for example, the creek that I'm speaking of. You want to evaluate your storage capacity and the cost of drilling wells if needed, right? Are you permitted to drill for a well in your community? Check out your community regs, your legal considerations and regulatory compliance. Do you have the rights? What's your planning and zoning areas? We've been talking about that a lot, right? You want to, again, evaluate the storage capacity and the cost of drilling if it is possible, if needed. The next thing you want to do is your gas supply, availability of natural gas or propane for heating and or machinery use, right? Um, I have I have electricity, but I have also firewood. But you can put propane tanks on your property. I'm kind of leery of those, but you may need them for heating. It's a personal preference. So you want to make sure that whatever your personal preference is, that you consider these things when acquiring that agricultural land. Consider the fuel storage if gas supply is not nearby, right? Do you have adequate storage for like tanks, your propane tanks? Do you have that in place? So these are things that you should be noting and writing down to make sure that you are considering these things. Accessibility. Um, Internet and communication. Reliable internet is essential for modern agribusiness, remote monitoring, and marketing. But if you're going off grid, usually you're not thinking about those things. But you want to have, now they have solar and solar communication. So you want to think about what things should you consider. Again, this is a personal preference: on grid, off grid. Whether what will be your communication style if the grid goes down. I remember when we were camping, and it was the most beautiful thing. We went camping as a family. It was 6 of us, and we were literally outside, tents and all. And I encourage you too to even do this on your own property, to try and camp outside. Learn how to camp, because you want to know that you are able to sustain if things go left, right? And you don't have access to the internet. How will you communicate? We had a wind up radio, right? It was a wind up radio that got us real news. And that was the thing that we needed to know the most, was what was happening in the news. What alarms did we need to be aware of, right? So you want to be considering your communications at all time. You want to check your cell signal strength and broadband access for remote operations. Can you get viable internet and communication services in that particular area where you're seeking to acquire this agricultural land? The third thing is proximity to storage, equipment, suppliers, and markets. Because why? These things are critical for your ability to function as a farmer. So think about your storage facilities. You need access to nearby grain silos, barns, or refrigerated storage, depending on your crops or your livestock. Again, your plan is critically important. What's the plan, and what storage facilities do you need to consider? If on-site storage is needed, you want to factor in construction or leasing costs, right? On-site storage. Secondly, in that area of proximity to storage is equipment suppliers and repair services. Are these people near you? What is the closest access to farm equipment suppliers if needed? I tend to buy everything that I need because I don't like renting things. So if I have to rent it for some hours, then it might be worth my time to just buy that particular piece of equipment, including tillers. I have a tiller, I use it. I buy everything that I need. Well, it's farm equipment, so you get to write it off. It's a part of your schedule F, right? So why not have what you need on site, right? For easy access. You may need a tractor. I didn't need you. Tractor is not something I'm interested in because that's for big farms. I'm not doing that kind of farming. One day maybe, but for now, this urban homesteading is a beautiful thing. And again, it depends on your plan. What tools do you need? And machinery, right? Again, I evaluated what I needed. I needed, saws and all the things, a greenhouse, all the things that I needed. I consider availability of maintenance and repair services for the things, for the equipment that you have, to reduce any downtime that you may run into in this process of farming or homesteading in this case, or agritourism if you're creating an experience or an environment for individuals to get off grid. It's a great idea, which is what we are doing. We're creating an experience, an agritour, a place where you can also tour, and you will have what you need. You'll have on-site garden, you'll have cut flowers, you'll have all the things. When you create an experience for individuals, because people are more likely these days to want to get off grid for a little while, just for their mental health, to get away from the hustle and bustle of everyday living, right? You also want to consider zoning and land use regulations. Verify that the land zoning laws allow for intended agricultural activities. This is so critical. Can you have farm animals? Can you catch the water? If so, how many animals? What type of animals? Your planning, your zoning, these things are so critical. Get to know, put them on speed dial, befriend, interview. That's what I did. I interviewed my zoning people and I've got them on speed dial if I have questions, right? Build those relationships with the people that can answer the questions that you have and or offer the advice that you need. Emergency services, you want to consider, if you have animals or livestock, do you have access to veterinary services, hospitals and fire stations for safety? I do. Do you know your veterinary? Do you have a veterinary service? I do. So you want to make sure that you have these services available to you. Community and workforce availability. Do you have the ability to hire people? Have you developed a community workforce, staffing, the ability to staff at the drop of a dime? You want to, one of the things that I use that I find really, really helpful is People Source. Y'all, People Source, you build a relationship with them and you need somebody to come until you can get them in a day. Like, you can call that night, see who's available, and you can get somebody out there that day to do what you need them to do. So you want to carefully evaluate all the factors. You can ensure that the land you purchase supports efficient operations and reduces overhead costs and aligns with your long-term agricultural business goals. And if you need assistance for that, like assistance with the checklist or site assessment strategies, we're here to provide you the support for that as well. This will be on YouTube. We're not taking it down. We're developing it also into a form of downloadable for you as well. And so let's talk about Some concerns though, as it relates to these viable areas that we talked about. Some rural areas will lack well maintained roads. You got to consider it because these are concerns. But what are some of the successes as it relates to what we've talked about in the aforementioned? Good highway connectivity. Farms near major roads or highways benefit from reduced transport costs and fast delivery to markets. You have reliable all season roads. You have the presence of local transport services. If you consider all the things that we have mentioned, right? You have access to established utility services, existing irrigation infrastructure, solar and renewable energy potential, and nearby processing facilities, access to local farmers, markets, and co ops, and availability of storage rentals. Now, there's always going to be some gaps, right? And so we want to talk about those gaps because some agricultural zones suffer from neglected road maintenance and weak transportation policies. If you are a developer, then developers automatically know that they want to they have to get the sign off when you're developing that community of, maybe it's agritourism. There are, it's coming, everyone. And you have to get signed off by DOT anyway, right? As a developer, there are a set of rules that are different depending on what area of agriculture, of acquiring land or real property that you are in, right? Let's see some other gaps. Because of course many rural bridges do not support heavy loads. We talked about that, and the restricting access for modern farming equipment. So some recommendations that we have. Let's talk about prioritizing properties with reliable road access. Choose land. This is how you eliminate some of this stuff. Choose land with all season roads and proximity to major highways. Ensure that your private or local authorities maintain access to the roads. We just talked about that. Evaluate the feasibility of rail or river transport for large scale farming operations, right? These are some recommendations. Get estimates on power, water, and gas connections to factor into your investment decisions. Make this a part of your due process. If traditional utilities are limited, again, explore solar, wind, and water conservation strategies. And then you want to think about ensuring legal access to irrigation sources and test your water quality for suitability. Choose your land within reasonable distance to grain elevators, processing plants, and farm supply centers. Check, 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 you guys. If your markets are far, consider constructing your grain silos, cold storage, or barns, right? Consider your own storage. I have a seed house, I have a barn, I have a greenhouse. You want have your own storage and equipment. And you also want to join agricultural cooperatives because they can provide shared storage and equipment access. That was one of the benefits of joining the Pitt County community plots, which was amazing. When purchasing agricultural land, again, infrastructure and accessibility significantly influence operational efficiency and costs. Addressing these concerns related to road conditions, utilities, and proximity to key facilities can ensure long-term success. Buyers, know before you buy. You should perform site assessments, cost analysis, and infrastructure planning before committing to a property, right? All right. So, in other news, let's talk about what's in other news. Recent developments in the U.S. infrastructure and agricultural policy may impact considerations for purchasing agricultural land. particularly regarding infrastructure and accessibility. Here's a summary of key updates from the Farm Service Agency. Number one, infrastructure funding and development. Transportation funding secured. Congress has approved a spending package that fully funds core highway, public transportation, and airport construction programs for fiscal year 2025, ensuring continued support for infrastructure projects essential to agricultural logistics. This is out of ARTBA. Also, the Environmental Protection Agency plans to narrow the definition of federally regulated waterways, responding to a 2023 Supreme Court decision. This change aims to reduce regulatory burdens on land development, potentially simplifying processes for agricultural landowners. This is Reuters, right? You check out Reuters, EPA's revised waterway regulations. In the area of agricultural policy and funding, efforts to pass a new farm bill faces challenges due to organizational changes within the Agriculture Department and other policy disputes. The existing Farm Bill, last updated in 2018, is overdue for renewal, creating uncertainty for agricultural programs and funding, as per Politico Farm Bill negotiations. The USDA has announced lending rates for March 2025, with direct farm operating loans at 5.5% and direct farm ownership loans at 5.875%. Y'all remember that these loans are available, but you have to have at least 2 years out. So if you have not gotten started yet, let's get you started. I'm calling you to action if this is something that you want to one day find yourself eligible, ready, that you are in the ready position to ascertain the lending. Prospective land buyers should factor these rates into your financial planning. This is directly from the Farm Service Agency USA lending rates. There's also government payment surges. A significant increase in government payments from 9.3 billion in 2024 to 42.4 billion in 2025 is projected to boost net farm income. I need y'all to hear these numbers so y'all can understand what is mattering to people these days. This surge is largely due to disaster and economic assistance approved by Congress, which may influence land investment decisions. This on your ag web, so check that out. Let's talk about the Rural Broadband Program leadership change. E. Feynman has stepped down as director of the $42.5 billion Broadband Equity Access and Development Program, BEAD, which aims to provide high-speed internet to underserved rural areas. This transition may affect the program's progress and the availability of reliable internet sources in rural communities. If you have questions in the live chat, please feel free to leave your questions so that I can, if I don't have the answer, I can find the answer. Thank you all for being here today. Number 4, EPA's reassesses the climate regulations. The EPA is considering repealing a landmark scientific finding on greenhouse gases, which could lead to changes in climate-related regulations affecting agricultural practices and land use policy. So you want to stay in tune with what is happening in the news. This is in the Associated Press News. You must stay in tune with what is happening so that as you are moving through your processes, you are clear and clearly connected in the right way to the things that are happening, the policies that are moving, the regulations that are being established. All of these things are critical to your knowledge and the success of your farming efforts, should I say your agricultural efforts, because everyone's not into it to farm, but you may be into it for real estate agritourism, right? Which is a critical space to be in this time. Again, people are looking for those experiences. Some recommendations for prospective agricultural land buyers: stay informed, monitor legislative developments such as the Farm Bill negotiations and infrastructure funding to understand potential impacts on agricultural operations. You want to also evaluate financing options, consider current USDA lending rates and government payment programs when planning land purchases and operational budgets. Investigate the status of rural broadband initiatives. I've just given you some facts and other utility services in the area to ensure they meet operational needs. You want to understand, again, we talked about regulatory compliance and legal considerations last week. So you want to be thinking about that as well. Keep abreast of the environmental and regulatory shifts that may affect land use, water rights, and compliance requirements. By staying informed about these developments, you can make more strategic decisions regarding agricultural land investments, particularly concerning infrastructure and accessibility. What are some resources? I always want you to have access to education, resources, and of course, support in your area. We also have a supportive community. If you are interested in being a part of that supportive community, click the link in the description box and to sign up for our webinars, which are here 1 o'clock every Tuesday, and support in the aftermath. One of the things that you want to consider, a great resource is your Land Loss Prevention Project, or the LLPP, which was established in 1982 by the North Carolina Association of Black Lawyers, aims to prevent the loss of Black-owned land in North Carolina. That has been a problem for us, and we must get a handle on it and stop selling our land. The other thing is, of course, I've talked about earlier, and I always talk about, is the National Black Farmers Association, which is a nonprofit organization that represents African-American farmers and their families across the United States. My favorite is North Carolina A&T State University. That is where I was actually served as a certified mini society micro enterprise developer for youth, and I've taken that from youth to many levels since its inception of that program. They're big. That's an agricultural institution, so stay connected, know your folks, know the programs that are coming out of NCA to A&T. Those Aggies are really doing it. Number 4 is your NC Farm Link. You also want to check out NC Farm Link. Is a program by the Cooperative Extension. I'm trying to see if there's anything in the chat. Is a program by your Cooperative Extension, which I always talk about, that is right in your local community. So check that out. Black Farmers Market, there's one operating in Durham and Raleigh. We are starting one here in our area as well. So very excited about our first market at the end of this month. Let me give you that date, because I've been saying month in, will be held on the 29th, which is next Saturday. Very excited about getting some groceries into the hands of our folks. So number 6, Nature for Justice's Farm Inclusion Program. That is a program to increase Black and Indigenous farmers' access to resources and strengthen climate resilience through social justice approaches and a focus on regenerative agriculture. Another resource is your USDA has beginner farming and rancher development programs. And y'all network always. And as we come to another close for the Real Agri Business right here on Touch One Life, Touch Millions, I want you all to remember that success in agriculture requires a clear plan, strong resources, and expert guidance. For those looking to build, expand, or sustain their agribusiness or identify real agri property, we offer some tailored solutions. We have comprehensive initial assessments to understand your land's potential and operational needs, 90-day action plans, which is a structured approach to setting and achieving measurable goals. We also have consultations available, expert insights on land acquisition, funding strategies, and sustainability, as well as gardening techniques and design. And four, we have coaching for real agribusiness entrepreneurs, personalized guidance to help you scale and succeed. If you are ready to take action, book your consultation today by going to the description box and start transforming your vision into a reality. Let's grow food, not grass. Let's create experiences for sustainable living. Together, let's cultivate a future where land ownership, economic stability, and self determined success defines the next generation of Black farmers and agribusiness leaders. And that's all I have for today, everyone. Always excited to come and bring you joy, joy, and more joy as we are turning up the notches on designing the life that we deserve and redefining well being as the highest form of equity for sustainable living. We are 43 minutes in, and this is all I have for today. Checking you out. If you are coming in the aftermath on a replay, please do leave comments. If there's anything that I've said here that piques your interest, make sure that you leave your comments, and we'll come back if there's a question that you have or more information you want to learn. Please do leave your comments below. Right now, I don't see any comments in our live chat. I'm going to double check over here. Again, this is another live with Dr. Eve, your community health and human service educator, advocate, all the things, to help us develop the life that we deserve, right? Peace and blessings, and may you have the most amazing day. And whatever you do, don't let anyone get in the way on your journey to becoming who God has called you.